An open all-out war between Israel and Iran has almost started. Iran launched 180 ballistic missiles at Israel on the first day of October. World War III has already started, as per news channels. Iran has declared war on Israel. World War III has already started. But is this going to happen? Are we going to die from a fierce nuclear war? Or will our country's pollution, inflation, and hatred burn us first? It is true that Israel has also said that it will retaliate against Iran's rockets. And Iran has also made it clear that if it takes action, it will launch more attacks. This time, only a warning was given without targeting civilian areas. For the past year, the world is afraid of one thing: that a de facto regional war may start in the Middle East, and that scenario is becoming real. Israel and Iran are standing in front of each other. As usual, the world is saying that both sides should exercise restraint and seek diplomatic solutions. But as expected, the US and G7 countries have acknowledged that Israel has the right to respond. The US has said that it will support Israel's retaliation against Iran. American President Joe Biden clarified that Israel's response should be proportional. The US would not support an Israeli attack on Iran's nuclear sites. Iran has entered the war zone where Israel has been fighting proxies of Iran for a year. Israel has also taken a pledge to attack Iran. The situation in the Middle East was already bad. Now the Israel versus Iran war has started. The world will have to suffer. In today's episode of Deshbach, why did Iran attack Israel? What is the history of the war between Israel and Iran? How did the situation become so bad that the two major powers of the Middle East are now in the situation of open war? Why does the Israeli government call Iran the head of the octopus? And what are the other countries of the world doing in the midst of all this? Apart from playing the violin, how is Israel preparing for a response? And what regional and global repercussions can there be in this new war? Will World War III really happen? Or will the Middle East turmoil only cause more loss of life? It is said that if World War III starts, it will be because of the Middle East. That is why it is important to know the history here. Let's start with that. The story of Israel and Iran starts in 1948 when Israel declared its independence in the Middle East because they considered it as the Promised Land. Then, Iran was a secular and pro-Western regime under Shah Mohammad Reza Pahlavi. Because of common strategic and economic interests, Iran and Israel established informal relations. Although Iran never formally recognized Israel as a separate state, it was a strategic alliance, intelligence sharing, and economic cooperation. Iran supplied oil to Israel. Both countries' militaries also cooperated. Joint drills and exercises were also conducted. It is difficult to think about it today, but that was the beginning. All this changes in 1979 when the pro-Western Shah Reza Pahlavi is removed and power is assumed by Shia cleric Ayatollah Khomeini. Now, a theocratic Islamic Republic of Iran instead of secular liberal Iran. After the Iranian Revolution, Iran officially becomes a tough opponent of Israel. After becoming an Islamic republic, Iran declared Israel an illegitimate Zionist regime. Zionism is a political and nationalistic movement which started in the 19th century. Its main aim was to establish an independent homeland for Jews, which eventually was completed in 1948 with the creation of Israel. Zionism's focus was to make Jews a separate nation where they could practice their cultural, religious, and political identity freely. Especially considering the fact, and it is true, that Jews had to face a lot of persecution in Europe and the rest of the world. After Hitler and Nazi atrocities, the Zionist movement becomes even stronger. The UN and Western powers also helped in establishing Israel. But Shia cleric-ruled Iran's stance has always been that Israel's existence is against the Middle East, specifically against Palestinians. Keeping all this in mind, Iran's top leadership has also called for Israel's destruction. The biggest reason for a possible Third World War is this split, difference of opinion, and war. Quiet for some time, but now it has become a reality. Before we move ahead, let's understand that a global war will only worsen the economic situation. You know the situation of jobs in our country. In case of war, no one can save you. You will have to make your skills war-proof. Now the thing to understand here is that in the entire Middle East, this sentiment has always been there, that the Israelis are occupants. They have occupied the Palestinian land. Just like Pakistan has occupied a part of Kashmir. By the way, J&K elections have been completed, for 90 seats. But do you know that even today, 114 seats are counted in the J&K assembly? 24 seats are in the POK, but which we consider as our own. In the Middle East, people also believe that the Western powers have intentionally planted a Jewish state in a predominantly and historically Islamic land. Some hardliner Muslims have now accepted the destruction of Israel as their religious duty. This is the fault line. This is the fundamental fault line. That is why, after the takeover of fundamentalist Islamic clerics in Tehran, Iran's position on Palestine and Israel became even more hardline. They will not talk. You leave, we will finish you. In fact, this new regime, which was very much anti-US and anti-Israel, they started seeing the US as a big and Israel as a small devil. To control this small devil and to give the Palestinian people their rights, to get their country, the hardliner Iranian government started to build, equip and fund militias in the nearby areas of Israel. During this time, groups like Hezbollah and Hamas are born, who are still fighting against Israel. These groups were formed under the forward defense doctrine of Iran. This doctrine says that how you can exert your power beyond your borders without direct confrontation. These proxies were made by them. Iran's nuclear program emerged in the 1990s. If there were nuclear weapons, the US wouldn't think of regime change and attack. But Israel considered Iran's nuclear ambitions as an existential threat. If Iran becomes nuclear, Israel is finished. And that is why a dangerous proxy war begins. Israel, which was surrounded by enemies, had unofficially gained nuclear power status in the 1960s thanks to America, but they did not want any other country in the Middle East to be affected by the nuclear weapon. This is why Israel's Begin Doctrine was used. Any anti-Israel country will not be allowed to make nuclear weapons or any other weapon of mass destruction. Israel's policies, Israel's politics, Israel's doctrine allows it to destroy any country's weapons which can threaten Israel in the future. Israel had made military strikes on the nuclear reactor of Iraq under this doctrine. Israel claimed that Saddam Hussein was making nuclear weapons there. No peaceful use of nuclear energy was going to happen. Israel used the same doctrine against Iran to see Iran's growing nuclear ambitions. But this time, fighter planes were not used. Iran's top nuclear scientists died mysteriously, or were they assassinated? The Mossad intelligence agencies of Israel are said to be involved. The most famous and dramatic case in these was of Mohsen Fakhrizadeh, who was Iran's top nuclear scientist. According to a report by the New York Times, Israel used an AI robot and a remote-controlled machine gun to kill him. So, Israel was working at that level. Israel's anti-Iran operations were not limited to assassinations. In 2010, Israel and the CIA together invented a computer worm called Stuxnet. By inserting this worm, they ruined the computers. Centrifuges were made to malfunction by using this worm. This led to Iran's enrichment and nuclear program to go back years. Operations were happening at such a high level. Actually, Israeli intelligence has infiltrated every institution of Iran. Their presence has become so deep and troublesome for Iran that Iran never even talks openly about it. Because if your enemy can do secret operations so easily and has gone so deep, then you will be asked the question, what is your intelligence doing? This week, the former Iranian president has admitted that the chief of Iran's anti-Mossad intelligence unit turned out to be an agent of Mossad. This is the condition of Iran's security apparatus and nuclear apparatus. But despite this, Iran is trying to give a hard answer to Israel. Iran's proxies have been successful in the past 2 decades. Hezbollah, Hamas, and Houthis in Yemen. Palestinians have been oppressed for decades, and they are living in an open prison in Gaza. Hamas takes advantage of this exploitation and desperation, and a year ago, Hamas planned something that set the Middle East on fire. On 7 October 2023, a terrorist attack in Israel by Hamas resulted in more than 1,200 people being killed and over 250 taken prisoners. It is considered one of the worst terror attacks in recent history. The next day, Lebanon's Hezbollah also started bombing Israel. In a few days, Yemen's Houthi rebels also started pressuring Israel. They began attacking ships passing on the Red Sea. The attacks from all sides did not have a big impact on Israel. Their defenses are strong. They started their operations in Gaza and Lebanon. We have made a long episode on Hamas terror attacks and Israel's genocide in Gaza. It is a very complicated topic. I have given the links below, you can watch it. But now comes the interesting part. To deal with Iran proxies, Israel has started cross-border operations in Syria and Lebanon. The Hezbollah commanders and military officers of Iran were targeted. They were coordinating attacks on Israel from Syria and southern Lebanon. The war with Hamas was just a step towards the war we are seeing today. Tensions between Iran and Israel have been going on for a long time. Israel has been conducting cross-border operations, but in April there was a significant escalation in these cross-border operations. Because the target of this operation was the Damascus-based Iranian consulate, it can be considered a direct attack on Iran for two reasons. First, an embassy or diplomatic mission is considered part of that country. An airstrike on the Iranian consulate in Syria can be considered an airstrike on Iranian soil. Second, 7 officers of the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, including 2 top generals, were killed. Now, I am not talking about the proxies of Iran. These officials were Iranian commanders. It is obvious that Iran also talked about retaliation, about a direct attack. On 13th April, Iran fired more than 300 projectiles on Israel as missiles and drones. France, the UK, Saudi Arabia, and Jordan helped Israel in repelling the attack. Most projectiles were intercepted, but Israel retaliated. A small-sized quadcopter drone was targeted. However, Iran and Israel never officially acknowledged this attack as an act of retaliation. The matter was not further dealt with. It was suppressed. But this attack did convey a deeper message to Iran. Iran's secret nuclear program is also established in Isfahan. And at this place, Israel attacked on a small scale and told Iran that they know about their sensitive locations. Next month, Iranian President Ebrahim Raisi dies in an air crash. There are some controversies, conspiracy theories, but no official angle has come out yet that Israel can be involved in this. In Iran, Hamas leader Ismail Haniyeh was killed. This was not an accident. Iran has officially blamed Israel for this. Israel never denied its role in Haniyeh's death. Iran had also talked about avenging Haniyeh's death. But again, back-channel talks were held. The US intervened, and the matter was suppressed again. A red line was crossed, but no action was taken. But how many times will you repeat the same? Now, a series of major escalations are coming. Iran says, red line has been crossed again and again. In Lebanon, pager and walkie-talkie attacks were carried out. Hezbollah chief Nasrallah and an Iranian commander were assassinated in Beirut. In Lebanon, the IDF has started an on-ground invasion. Israel has attacked Iranian interests one after another. It has crossed the red line. Iran cannot sit quietly now. Otherwise, it will have to face the consequences. Finally, on 1st October, Iran launched its biggest missile barrage on Israel. Israeli military bases were targeted in these strikes. Israel's aerial defense was not successful in stopping them completely, but it did not cause much damage to Israel. But just a few minutes before the missiles were falling from the sky, a major terror attack took place in Tel Aviv's southern region. Hamas's 2 terrorist guns were used to shoot at a train station and its surrounding area, and 7 Israelis were killed in this tragic incident. The only thing that is clear from this is that you will have high-tech, missiles, air defense, Iron Dome, but how will you be able to stop these terror attacks? These will continue to happen even after the war. Now, there is consensus in the Israeli military and political circles that a strict answer must be given to the missile attacks by Iran. Israel has not yet decided its final response while recording. You may see it in a few days. But according to reports, Israel wants to attack Iran's oil production units along with its air defense. The international community and the US have already imposed crippling sanctions on Iran, resulting in a poor economic state of Iran. Now, if an attack is made on its oil facilities, then not only Iran but the entire world's economies will be negatively impacted. Iran has said that if its oil facilities are targeted, it will not let a single drop of oil go out of the Middle East. On the other hand, Israel's Prime Minister Netanyahu has already started addressing the people of Iran. He has started giving hints that he wants to overturn the power in Iran. He said that the Iranian government has made a big mistake and it will have to pay for it. But Israel is not fighting a proxy terror group, it is fighting Iran. If you look at the military capabilities of Israel and Iran, you can see a clash of thorns. Israel has roughly 170,000 active-duty soldiers, while Iran has more than 5 lakh active-duty personnel. Iran has manpower, but Israel's reserve force is very strong. Around 4.5 lakh people can be included in this. So the total military force is substantial. For ground forces, Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, IRGC, and militias like Hezbollah are strong for proxy warfare. Israel has well-trained ground forces, but Iran has a more strategic alliance. Israel has the support of America. But considering geographical distance, it won't be that easy to send troops through Lebanon. Chances are that the war will be fought in the air, and Israel is ahead in terms of air power. Israel has more than 600 aircraft, including advanced F-35 stealth fighters from America. Because of sanctions, Iran's air force is quite depleted. It is believed that there can be 300 to 500 aircraft, but they are outdated Russian and Chinese models. They don't have any latest advanced aircraft systems. Their air defenses are not as capable as Israel's. If we talk about missile capabilities, Iran again appears to be very strong. Iran has more than 3,000 ballistic and cruise missiles, including long-range ballistic missiles. They can target any corner of the Middle East. Israel also has ballistic missiles, but their missile defense systems like Iron Dome, David's Sling, and Arrow 3 are very effective. If someone attacks them, they can protect themselves. So, when there is a fight, when there is a long history, then are we seeing the scene of World War III? News channels start World War III anywhere. Earlier it was Ukraine and Russia. They must have already done World War 56 on TV screens. But the fact is that if World War could have been started, it would have been done in the last year. No one wants World War III. Everyone is trying to save their dignity. Let me explain how. Iran knows that if it kills more Israeli civilians, there will be an escalation. If there is an escalation, America will get involved and the situation will worsen. Israel wants to see American troops, American taxpayer money, and a war like in Iraq and Afghanistan. Iran's problem is that if they get scared of America, their credibility and regional power status will be damaged. That is why Iran is trying to assert itself. Launch missiles again and again, nothing happens. But it is launching missiles. Israel has limited options. Forget social media. You killed Hezbollah leadership. You made the pagers explode. You got the tactical advantage. You got the headlines. The wind is in your favor, but you can't win wars with this. Look what happened after a year. You couldn't defeat a force like Hamas completely, nor could your hostages come back to you. And in Lebanon, along with the ground invasion, Israeli troops have started being killed. That's why the USA is telling Israel that you have achieved a lot. Now move back. But Netanyahu believes that this is the right opportunity. Strike Iran's nuclear sites and take it to a no-nuclear state. But somewhere Israel and America know that they can start a war on Iran, but they won't be able to end it. America realized this in Iraq, in Afghanistan, and Israel in Lebanon. A ground invasion will not be successful, it will only lead to a stalemate. And, as much as Netanyahu says on TV, Iran's regime change will not be that easy. People will not speak against their own regime when there is an invasion from outside. And if the regime changes, the alternative may be even more fundamentalist. India will have to play a balancing game. Our relations with Israel were getting better, but India has said that it wants a two-state solution. Palestine should get its state and rights, and Israel should live peacefully. But Israel doesn't agree to this. Our relations with Iran have been good for decades. We take energy from them, and India has not declared Hezbollah a designated terror group. If the Middle East is in a war, then our oil import will be reduced by more than half. All these things show how complicated the Middle East is, and how complicated our role is, and how interlinked is the peace and stability of the world. Many scholars are thinking about the war question, but in Gaza, people are still displaced. Children are still living in tents. Winter is coming again. There is no coat, no socks, no clean water, no proper food. I can guarantee that children will die of hypothermia again. And big countries will keep throwing hypersonic missiles at each other, unless everyone agrees that a two-state solution is the only way. Till then, more lives will be lost in the Middle East. Let me make a 10-minute video on this topic.